What the hell is going on, people? This is Periodic, and today we're bringing you some secrets to chapter 906 of One Piece manga. This is courtesy of the Library of Ohara, ohara.com, which is a fantastic website, just truly great. That pretty much goes over just a bunch of secrets of different chapters of One Piece. Big shout outs to Archer. Always does this pretty much every single week, just really painstakingly goes through each chapter and tries to find out little secrets, little tidbits, things of that nature. This is the main site, the Library of One Piece Knowledge. It's just fantastic. So if you guys have a chance, go to the Library of Ohara.com. You will not be disappointed. You will be on it forever. So awesome stuff, especially for a big fan of One Piece. So let's start it off. We're just going to fly through this. I'm going to give my opinion on some of the interesting stuff, but we're going to read it in case you haven't and just kind of go through it. Okay, so pretty much cover story is following a really weird theme. It shows Olympus having a big possession on order, symmetry, and perfection. We see him here pointing out a pinch of dust, which Columbus punishes the subordinate for. This is similar to the perfection Olympus showed last chapter. And Olympus, as explained before, is a pun on Columbus, which is obviously the Italian sailor who came to America and discovered America. With the Japanese reading O meaning big lumbus, since Ko in Japan, Ko means small, so it's a pun on his name. He's very big. So in this case, Columbus is literally just a little kid. The gender is a bit hard to discern, but I'd say she's a girl because of the hair and bow. So they're talking about the little Columbus there. Also, did you spot the 4 on the subordinate's back? That's a clear reference to the Santa Maria fleet, as Yon 4 instead of Santa Maria. San equals 3. So in case you didn't know, Columbus, the original Columbus, had 3 ships, and the third one is what they're saying is the Santa Maria, which San means 3 in Japan, each Nissan, and the 4 is Yan. So okay. We see the top of Bandala system, which is quite interesting. And the Bandala system, in case you didn't know, is the weird flotation elevator type things in the Holy Land. We see the top of the Bandala system, which is quite interesting. It shows a direct craving of the red line, which with statues similarly being dug quite literally within the red line, indicating that despite its aforementioned toughness, there is indeed a way to carve through it. Not just that, but the platform supporting the station for the gondolas appear to have part of the red line extending onto it, meaning the material might have even been crafted into rough shapes, that the material shapes to support the station and avoid it from falling. We can also see the direct edge of the red line. It's surprisingly very well cut. Was that also due to the work of men? And that is very, very true. It's almost like a wall, the red line. So that's very fascinating. It looks very man-made. So we'll see what happens. The numbers 2 and 4 are featured. This likely means the 1 and 3 are on the other side. Beautiful gigantic statues of figures of ancient past ornate the walls of this passage, seemingly being cut into the red line itself. On the left, a man wielding a katana, the right one wielding a spear. For how many centuries have these been here? So it reminds me very much of area in World of Warcraft, where you go into this place with a bunch of statues to fight a giant statue, like a former Titan type dude, and there's just like a bunch of tall statues lining the wall. So it looks really cool. This style of architecture of putting statues into walls in a sacred place is something that we've seen in real life under many forms, being used in several cultures across history, obviously. By the way, these ornate gates, this architecture is slightly resembling that of Enies Lobby, which makes sense, since they're both made by the world government. Also, did you note the gate of Enies Lobby are based on the ones of Bad Boy Gelat in Fes, Morocco, which based the entire architectural style for Enies Lobby. Queen Mamaron isn't the only thing in the series to be based on Morocco. So there you go. A little cool picture showing the two styles of architecture very similar. The Holy Land of Mary Joas, that's how I'm going to pronounce it. I still don't have a clear-cut pronunciation, but I'm trying my best with it. With all the errors Oda has been doing in romanization recently, it's been hard to discern which ones are right or wrong. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead with Mary Joas. The biggest plot twist here is that the castle of Mary Joas was actually never facing paradise. Despite so many times in the series cutting over from the red line to the castle from the front, it seems it was facing sideways, with paradise on its right and the new world on its left. It appears to be facing towards the side of the West Blue and South Blue. We directly get to see some parks as well, though the guard points out they're not native, but they were instead planted there, as vegetation likely has a hard time growing naturally on top of the red line. Obviously, it's the top of a mountain. There's also a small river on the left separating a main capital from the palace at the center. And you see kind of like a town over on the right-hand side, which is very fascinating. Speaking of altitude, the merfolk get their bubbles replaced, as they are now far too high for the coral bubbles from Fishman Island to work so high up. So I've already talked about inspirations for the castle of Mary Joas in everything you need to know before the Reverie arc, but for those who missed it, let me bring it up again. And it's based off of the Chambord Chateau found in France. The architecture of both is almost uncanny, with even the rear of the castle being cut off just like the one in the Holy Land. Simply, the building was never finished, as the French Revolution started during the time of the building. It was meant to serve as the lodging of the king. As you can see, that turned out to be true in this chapter, as we later see that the back of the palace is indeed looped off. And that shows it right there. The one to bring up the matter of the Travelator is actually King Hamburger. We also saw in the previous panel that he wasn't that shocked at the sight of the castle, highly hinting at the fact that he has been at the Reverie before, likely the same for Momorin given the lack of surprise. On the other hand, we do know this is Stelli's first time, since he took the crown just a few months ago. The Neptune family is given a connecting cane, since after all they are floating in the air thanks to the bubbles. We can also see a lot of characters here, so let's name them all. So you got Tacos, Sari, Beer the Sixth, Stelli, Goa subordinate, Hamburger, Bollywood subordinate. Stelli follows his slapstick behavior by once again tripping on the ground as the Travelator moves. He's pretty funny in this chapter and the last one. Also, don't forget, unless they changed escorts, one of these guards is actually Sabo. We saw that in the last chapter. Fukaboshi already seemed to realize the truth of the Travelator and want to take Shirahoshi floating on the normal road before she realized it all. And that's when he goes, I've got a bad feeling about this. And obviously you see that underneath they're using slaves to pretty much make the Travelator work. And indeed he was right, as we're shown the dark side of Mary Joas and all the horror and lack of care for human life that comes with it. I mean, they love the slave market. It seems that the way this functions is that slaves use the very same connecting canes the others use, which can be seen spread across the entire road, and pull it all the way to the opposite direction, where they let go of it, retracting it back into the Travelator, run back, and grab another one to keep pulling. If you look at the background, some of them can be seen running back, so it's just torturous. Also, the guard who is whipping the slaves has an outfit very similar to that of the guards of Tequila Wolf, the bridge where Robin was sent by Kuma. This indicates that this is likely a general outfit used for slave guards working for the world government in the Tenryubitu specifically. So, if you guys don't remember when Robin got sent over to Tequila Wolf, which was just like pretty much a slave camp that's been going on for hundreds of years, and she ended up causing a revolution with the revolutionaries. They were wearing the same outfits, the guard. This chapter also confirms that the town is indeed the residence of the celestial dragons, and likely that of their servants as well, not to mention slave dungeons. Contrary to the theory that they all lived in the big castle, the castle is likely reserved for the Gorasei, leaders of the government. So you can see a tower where one of them is in. I'm almost sure almost all of you remember him, but just in case, he's the celestial dragon from the Saboti arc who tried to buy Kami. That's why he's so interested in Shirahoshi here, since she also has a mermaid, and a really big one at that. A fun fact, Charlos was actually killed in the anime special 3D21, but that was obviously non-canon. The gates of the castle, this style of a bridge is connecting to a large gate, is distinctly of European castles, though the archway has a touch of Moroccan, just like the gates of Ennis Lobby, carrying over that architecture. And of course, perched above the entrance lies the world government logo. That's pretty evident. It's not exactly clear if he's shouting or simply looking in this panel, but it would make a lot of sense if Studley was the one impolitely shouting to open the gates, and that is true. He does look like he's the one shouting. Manboshi seems to be connecting with the ruler of a certain kingdom. He is wearing a samba hat, hence why he says samba, while Manboshi says mambo, as they both are both dancing styles deriving from South America. Mambo from Cuba, samba from Brazil. So it's just like different Latin styles of dancing. We found Strawberry's grandma. That's messed up. The reverie is a week long. It also mentions that it starts tomorrow. So it's been a single day since the revolutionaries freed Rurusha. The dish is indeed gourmet, as it follows the style of a large dish and a small pile of food that is often used in high-class gourmet. And do you recognize this guy? Yes, he seems to be the same from chapter 823, or rather his outfit looks rather the same, but his face slightly different, meaning he might be the subordinate of the king seen in chapter 823. Given how they are father and son, in both cases the child looks pretty similar to the father, and so these are all the gentlemen that are trying to butter up Shirahoshi and marry the sons. Also, being a kind, this guy has a crown on the top of his Texan hat. This is weird. You can also spot this guy in the corner going crazy for her. Yep. Shirahoshi's line references her gag from Fishman Island, where she always tells Vader Decken that he just wasn't her type, and so we're going to skip ahead. Let's have a little showcase of all the rulers and attendees at this reverie. So they showed a lot of kings and emperors and rulers and things of that nature. So you get a good look at a ton of different people. Maybe important, maybe not. Did you notice among them that you can see one of the Maitri princesses as well as Mamaroon? You can see Kabu and Mancheri gripping onto Rebecca's dress while Bien is floating with her powers. And Vivi here is spelled as Nefertari, once again, despite it being spelled as Nefeltari in chapter 823. As I previously mentioned, that was likely a mistake, as this spelling follows the origin of the name Nefertiti. Despite apologizing to Leo for calling him cute, he calls him cute. She calls him cute once again in whispers in the following panel. Or was it Karu that said that? Karu is very wary of Leo to the point that he gives him a chilling stare. For those wondering why Oda bothers to remind us all of these things, you have to keep in mind that a lot of One Piece readers only read through the series once, meaning they likely forget some important elements over the years, especially if they haven't read these since they serialized. And that is true. In this chapter specifically, there's a ton of flashbacks and stuff like this. This drawing might be a reference to the covers of volume 21 and 22. Pretty much Straw Hats versus Barak Works. As Vivi brings up Luffy, Shirahoshi overhears them. Leo and Rebecca use Resu. Karu is completely shocked by the entrance of Shirahoshi. Next to Shirahoshi, you can spot a large fountain of mermaids engraved in them. While on the left, you can see a table similar to that Fujitora and Ryogukyu used just a short while ago, so it's a green bowl. God damn it, now you're not even trying to hide the similarities, so just showing how similar a lot of these girls look. Shirahoshi is holding Rebecca in her hand, who is holding Leo in her hand. Holdception, one of the many monarchs oogles at the princess and their beauty. Sai ends up coming to the reverie. It's easy to assume Baby 5 and the others are likely somewhere here as well. It would be interesting to see an interaction between Viola, Rebecca, and Baby 5. It's very true. Sai calling Leo my brother is in reference to them being all sons of Luffy, because they've all joined Luffy's grand pirate fleet. That is taken from Yakuza culture, as the commanders of the fleet recognize themselves as the subordinates of Luffy or children of Luffy by exchanging sake cups, which they all did. Sai mentions cutting ties with his country. This has become Sai's part of the Happo Navy, but as a subordinate of Luffy, he is now a pirate captain. Interestingly enough, we finally get the name of the Miss Universe Wapple married back in chapter 261. Finally, her name is revealed as Kinderella, likely a reference to Cinderella. Her laugh, kotsu, 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 might be a reference to one of two things. Kotsusukuro, which is a Japanese expression for trying to look good, show off, or reference her looks. On the other hand, it could be a reference to kotsukotsu, the onomatopoeia for the sound of drums, in reference to the drum kingdom. No idea what that word is. She also adds the suffix universe at the end of some sentences, giving her status as Miss Universe. Of course she does. The puppy she is carrying in her arm is also the same from Walpole's cover story that he ate. called Hakawan. Kuraha's shirt reads Wanted 100B, which is a reference to Chopper's 100 belly bounty. That's actually pretty funny. It seems the Lapans have also joined Dalton's escort, and they've been seen carrying around the official helmet of the Sakura Kingdom with Chopper's antlers on it. Given how Wapol asks Kuraha how she's still alive, she brings back her gag from Drum Island where she asked people if they wanted to know the secret to her incredible youth. So a very old gag. As Vivi and Dalton converse, Sai and Leo talk in the background. As Dalton happily ignores Wapol, Rebecca takes notice of his mention of Luffy. In Dalton's flashback, Usopp appears with his face swollen, dating back to the reference from chapter 139 where Vivi slaps Usopp repeatedly in the face in order to awaken him from the cold. As we move from the party, Oda slowly pans the camera away from the castle, panel by panel, indicating us that we're going to travel far away from here. And here's the big reveal towards the end of this. So Doflamingo has his monologue to himself, mentioning that the assassins from up there is probably talking about Cypher Pole Aegis Zero, as up there references the Holy Land, and Cypher Pole are known as silent assassins of the world government. Back in the Dressrosa arc, Doflamingo forced the Cypher Poles to stage false news about him stepping down as Shichibukai in order to trick Law, threatening to release the information of the national treasure. Doflamingo specifically claimed that if the world were to know the national treasure, it would be thrown into utter chaos, for that item is so utterly dangerous that could literally allow one to virtually rule the entire world. Keep all of this in mind because this is important. So essentially what Doflamingo is saying here is that he's sure that sooner or later an assassin of Cypher Pole will come to assassinate him, since he now has no more influence to spread the knowledge of the national treasure around the world, being trapped in a prison. But they also know that if by some just bizarre chance he were to make it out, he'd have nothing to lose by declaring it what he knows to the world, which could literally cause the fall of the Holy Land, as everyone in the world would storm the capital to get their hands on it. He also mentions, isn't it fine to reveal it already, implying that with the war that will soon come, its existence will be revealed regardless. After all, Doflamingo mentioned that soon enough the Ten Ryubitu would be dragged down from their very thrones. So obviously Oda's been foreshadowing a war to end all wars that will make the War of the Best seem like a one-on-one fight. A minor detail, but he mentions Magellan put him in solitary confinement as a way to protect him. That might indicate that Magellan knows what might happen, but because he has some degree of respect for his prisoners, he doesn't want the government interfering with his prison, which really befits his character. And then the following scene. First of all, let's describe it piece by piece. At the castle of Mary Jaos, a tall, caped man walks down a corridor deep down in the depths of the castle. He opens a massive door and walks through a gigantic ancient hall where several archways lie. Inside one of them lies the national treasure of Mary Jaos, the Holy Land, a large straw hat just like Luffy's. The man gazes at the bounty poster, which he has two, expressing a silent reply as he stares at the straw hat, wondering what the similarity between the two. It's safe to assume at least that this is the national treasure, at least from a narrative perspective, since Doflamingo brought it up just before. But what does it all mean? Let's focus on the mysterious man. First things first, this has to be a member of the world government. He appears to have entered the chamber legitimately, opening the vault on his own and knowing the code, not as an intruder, further indicated by his actions. This means he has to be a high-ranking member of the world government to be able to access here and know the existence of the room. Could be a member of CPO, Cypher Pole Zero. Tall and elongated body and structures very similar to that of the CP0 members we saw in Dressrosa and Mother Caramel's flashback. It would make sense given how some of the assassins were likely sent after Doflamingo. This could be a high monarch of the world government, maybe even the leader of all the Tenryubutu, the descendant of the original founder. We've seen many of the celestial dragons be corrupted by their greed and laziness, but could it be that one of them takes his job seriously and strives to protect their status at all costs? Let me show you more directly why I believe that. If you look at the spiky hat of sorts, it's very clearly the shape of an elongated crown, which was pretty obvious, but if you look really closely, you can see the edges of said crown among the shadows, indicating that this is indeed an item worn on their head. Furthermore, if you look at the cape, it's ridiculously long, far more than any of the Cypher Pole's capes. And that would also seem to have a second layer of clothing that goes over his shadow, so it was almost like a Spock over the cape. This looks very similar to a king's stereotypical ermine coat, simply elongated just like the crown. In other words, many elements seem to point at this design being that of a king, which would make a lot of sense thematically given how this chapter was all about kings. Perhaps a thematic hint to his identity. At the very least, we know that this is a high ruler of the world government, either as a king himself, the true king of the Holy Land, the world government as a whole, or as a member of Cypherpole that works directly for someone who has such power, top brass of the world government. The room appears to be very ancient, with stone walls and ancient carvings simply damaged by time. There appears to be a set of symbols similar to the world government's logo, but slightly different. Possibly the original symbol for the organization many centuries ago when this room was first constructed. There are some parts, however, that are more modern. The gates have been likely added later to provide safer security, while a system of pipes appeared to be constantly keeping the room under deep temperatures, likely as an attempt to preserve the hat intact and not let it deteriorate. Now let's understand exactly what the man is doing. In the first panel, he looks down at the bounty poster, while in the next he appears to pull his head back to look at the giant straw hat. Notice how in the first he murmurs, indicating that he is being pensive, meditating about the connection between the two. But he isn't holding just Luffy's bounty poster. He also very clearly holding a second one beneath it. Who is that? Shanks, maybe? Well, let's address the national treasure first itself. For that, let's talk about Luffy's straw hat. There's a big theory that it holds a bigger importance than mere symbolism. It holds a lot of narrative strength and relevance to the character. It was, Goldie Rogers, obviously. Now let's talk about some general things about the Great Kingdom. Great Kingdom, the scholars of Ohara talked about is Raftel. We've all seen that. The architecture is nearly identical in teases of what we've seen. We also know that the One Piece itself might be related to it. Whitebeard stated that when the One Piece would be found, it would bring utter chaos to the world, hinting at it being a weapon or an item of incredible power. This has led a lot of people to believe that the straw hat is closely tied, acting as some sort of key or means for the One Piece to work. We know that Roger reaching Raftel, and then he came into contact with the One Piece, yet he did nothing. He left the island and disbanded his crew, despite the fact that he could have activated the One Piece. He could have brought the dawn onto the world. Roger gave the hats to Shanks when he was relatively young, implied directly to be back before he even set sail into the Grand Line, but Shanks and the hat did reach Raftel after all. We don't know why precisely Roger chose not to interact, but there are two possibilities. On one hand, maybe he decided not to. Maybe he established that it wasn't right to do so. Maybe he had somebody come after him to do it. On the other hand, maybe he couldn't. Maybe he lacked the mean to activate the One Piece. Because perhaps the straw hat he had was not the true key, or perhaps both of the hats are needed together. Regardless, it was Roger's belief that he wasn't the one to truly bring the dawn. As Whitebeard put it, Roger is waiting for a man. He is waiting for someone to do it in his stead, while what he couldn't do back then. This might be why Shanks gave Luffy his hat. He mentioned to Rayleigh that Luffy reminded him a lot of Roger, possibly implying that such a thing made Shanks believe that Luffy would be the one to carry Roger's will, and gave him his hat because of that. But to connect all this, let's bring something into question. Let's compare the quotes of Whitebeard and Doflamingo. Both of them describe the treasure of One Piece and the national treasure of the Holy Land as both items that could turn the world upside down. Both are equal danger, implying a strong connection between the two. This could further push the possibility of both hats, Luffy's and the Holy Land's, to be connected to the One Piece, either as a key or some means to affect how the One Piece is used, being an essential part of bringing the dawn. So let's talk about exactly what is taking place in the final scene. One of the highest ranking members of the world government, either a high ruler of the celestial dragons or maybe even above them in power, or central commander of the Cypherpole, enters a hidden vault in the Holy Land where the national treasure lies. There he approaches the statue, and the treasure compares it to the one Straw Hat Luffy has on his bounty poster, which he has two of, compares it to the natural treasure and ponders that connection, likely questioning which of the two is the real one, or if both are. He also wonders, most likely, about Luffy's slow rise to power as one of the Yonko and possibly soon the Pirate King, evaluating if he's a looming threat and why he's come to the room to compare the two hats. The other poster could be an old one of Roger or Shanks when they both had their straw hats. Maybe even a third hat. It's quite clear here that the hat is being kept inside the vault of the Holy Land because the government is afraid of its potential. As Rosinante described it, the celestial dragons saw the clan of D as God's natural enemy, with the clan of the D very likely being tied to the Great Kingdom. In the One Piece, the high leaders of the world government want to make sure that no one causes that to happen, for the dawn to never come. Hence why they're trying to assassinate Doflamingo and make sure that the information is never released to the public, so that no one ever comes and gets their hands on this hat. But the day will come, the dawn will arise. But to know more about that, you'll have to wait for Arthur's True History, or Arthur. When that comes, you will know everything. Shout out once again to Arthur over at the library of Ohara.com, coming out with the in-depth, detailed breakdown of One Piece chapter 906. Guys, go over there. Make sure you give that page some visits, because it is a fantastic, fantastic website. As always, this is Periodic saying see ya.